You're watching Talking Points, a focus on the political scene in Lubbock and across the South Plains. Sponsored by Capital Mortgage Services.
Yeah, welcome back. Here's a look at some of the political headlines of the past week. Lubbock ISD School Board voting to lower their part of your property taxes, deciding to set the rate at $1.16.5, down 7 cents from last year, which is actually a huge drop for these things. But keep in mind that since property values in Lubbock continue to move up, the actual savings for you will only be a few dollars. But hey, savings is savings, right? And Vice President Pence in Artesia, New Mexico this week, talking about the need to support the new North American Trade Agreement known as USMCA. He asked the crowd to encourage the New Mexico congressional delegation to pass the agreement. The Texas Republicans have been firmly behind the new trade deal and are calling for this to be a priority one after Congress's summer break. Mr. Pence, during his speech, praising the oil industry in the region, saying the USMCA will guarantee no tariffs on American oil. And despite recovering from a heart procedure, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, when asked about the bonding meeting controversy, said, quote, "We don't have many seats in the House to lose to Democrats, and this could play a part in that." Patrick also called on the recording to be released so people could decide for themselves. Probably important to note, though, that Patrick has received nearly $900,000 in campaign contributions from Sullivan's Empower Texans and their Political Action Committee. Let's continue our talk now with Representative Dustin Burrows.
Well, you and the Speaker said that taxpayer-funded lobbying was brought up in the meeting. Explain that problem for folks who, at least as you see it, that may not understand this and why this was an issue to begin with.
So the Republican Party of Texas had 5 central issues they wanted us to pass this session. That's a statewide, obviously, Chairman Dickey, and one of them was the ban on using taxpayer dollars for lobbying. I mean, essentially what it is, can your taxing entities, your mayors, councils, others go and actually take your hard-earned dollars and use them to pay hired gun Austin lobbyists to basically go and lobby, usually against things that I've worked on very closely. Property tax reform, reducing property taxes, working on first responder benefits that would cost potentially these people money. And it's something that I think that 91% of Texas, last poll I saw, actually approve of. Something $45 million or up to was spent last session trying to do. And quite honestly, before I got to Austin, I probably didn't think people could take your money and go use it that way. And so it just seemed like a good conservative issue to get forward and try to have economic policy-wise.
And you talked to him about that. Did you provide a list of Republicans there in the House who voted against that lobbying?
So we went through the record vote. So the record vote is something that every time we vote on anything, they print from the House floor, and you can go through and look at people
online
who were for it, people not. I actually pulled it up on my phone and did talk about some of the members who I thought may be with us next session on that because they'd historically been with us on other conservative priorities, and some that didn't. And I talked about those. And somebody told me the other day that Mr. Sullivan, asked us if he could take out a pen and write them down, and that's where this name comes from.
Yeah, but then again, why bring it up in the first place if he didn't want him to do anything? To me, it seems like that's like putting a plate full of warm chocolate chip cookies in front of a room of kindergartners and say, "Okay, I'm going to leave the room. Don't touch them." You're almost tempting a guy who is a little bit of loose cannon anyway.
Well, he's a loose cannon, fair enough. But, I think that, again, it's been so long since I've actually heard it. But I talked to another member, said the other day, gave a quote to the Dallas Morning News, the focus is on 2020, and the speaker said 5 to 7 times, don't go after any Republicans. But if you do, at least, oppose the ones that disagree with you. Don't be haphazard and shoot against people who don't agree with you.
Okay.
And, going through that vote, I mean, that was part of a conversation that we did have, absolutely.
Was there an offer made to provide House credentials for Texas scorecard and the things that Mr. Sullivan runs?
So I did not make any offers such as that. My understanding, talking to somebody, that anything to do with credentials lasted less than 20 or 30 seconds of an hour-long conversation. But here's the good news. This is being looked at by the Texas Rangers, and I look forward to them coming back and knowing what I already believe is nothing illegal happened in that meeting.
There you go. Meeting ends. So when do you realize that, okay, this didn't go well?
Well, at some point in time, certainly a meeting did not go well.
Yeah. Did he post that he has the recording? Should the public be allowed to hear it? Because there are some that said, hey, look, this is going to hurt Republicans. This is the sausage being made. Nobody wants to hear this, see this, whatever it is.
So here's what I'll tell you, and I should have said this at the beginning. Mr. Sullivan should release the tapes immediately, in their entirety and unedited. I joined Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Speaker Bonin, and the Chairman of the Republican Party calling for their immediate release. At this point in time, there's been so much discussion on them. The people of West Texas deserve to hear it for themselves and listen to it. And the idea that the people holding the tapes, are trying to not release them because they don't want to hurt the Republican Party, that's laughable. It really is. All they're doing right now is trying to hurt good Republicans.
Those who have heard it, or claim to have heard it anyway, say it backs up essentially what Sullivan has said, that this was a request for some sort of quid pro quo, you help us, we'll help you kind of thing. Are they not telling the truth here?
So let me tell you, there's actually members who called me right after my interviews the other day and said, you're spot on. I heard it the other day and you said exactly it. It's odd. It's been a bit of a Rorschach test for a lot of people. Some people hear it one way and some people hear it the other, but that's all the more reason to let the tapes out. Let everybody hear them. And I'm happy to come back on your show after they're released and discuss this more. But here's what I really think, Bryan. People care about their schools. They care about their teachers. They care about issues surrounding health care. They care about Texas Tech. They care about how much they're paying in property taxes because that's what affects their everyday life. And this is the tragic thing. We went into the meeting so we could focus on those issues, and I really wish we'd focus on those. And my campaign is going to be about the things that we accomplish and we need to accomplish and how it affects everyday West Texans' lives.
So then why not come out then and give your side of the story right away? And because constituents sat and sort of waited and wondered why they hadn't heard anything.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I think Speaker put out an email said, I asked Chairman Burrows to be silent. I think he was going to, work it and handle it. And for a period of time, I honored my chamber leader's request. Secondly, I'd rather be talking about the issues that I think matter to the people of West Texas. But thirdly, I kept thinking the tapes would come out. I mean, why make such a big to-do about, this and not release them and let the public hear for themselves? And that's where I would be in such a better position to, go through and talk about these things rather than relying on an imperfect memory.
Right.
I mean, I vaguely remember, specifically, what I spoke to my wife about this morning, much less, something that was said 75 days ago.
You better hope she's not watching you here.
I'm sorry, I remember exactly what she
Exactly all the time. Have you spoken with House members since you talked about Sullivan since all this came out?
I have. I've spoken to many House members. I've had a lot who encouraged me, to run for re-election, that honored to serve with me. I actually got in my truck and I saw some of the House members that were disappointed and wanted to go look them in the eye and talk to them face to face because I think that's the right thing to do.
Were there apologies made?
So what I'll tell you is those conversations I had were private. I mean, that's one of the things that, I think we usually respect is I'm not going to publicly talk about any of the conversations, specifically what I had.
I'll ask you this, though. In the end, did you feel like you had their support moving forward?
I had a lot of support moving forward, and I still have a lot of support of my colleagues moving forward.
With that in mind, though, why then resign as GOP caucus chair? Because I've not heard anyone, at least publicly, say that that needed to happen.
No, they hadn't, but there's a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, there's a couple different facets of being the GOP caucus chair. One of it is to drive conservative policy for all of Texas, and on the other hand is to be a cheerleader for all 83 Republicans, regardless of how they vote. You can imagine that sometimes comes into conflict. But, having made the decision to be quiet until the tapes came out, the caucus certainly needed, a strong voice. They needed somebody out there to talk about these types of things. And here's what I was blessed with. An incredible vice chairperson, Stephanie Click. She ran a county party. And it's no secret that we were not doing well in the last election cycle with women. And I think it's going to be great to have her at the helm going into 2020 for Trump and for all the Republicans on the ballot so that she can speak out, and she's well prepared to do that.
In the end here, you talk about the re-election campaign. Governor already behind all of that. But with all of this swirling around and people listening to parts of things and here and there, hearing things in and out, there are going to be those, and already have, who question your ethics and question your motives moving forward. What do you tell them right now?
So here's what it is. During the interim, we're going to take a look at a lot of issues on Ways and Means. I have the privilege and honor of chairing that committee. It's an important committee. We write bills, we write legislation that is going to help drive down property taxes even further. That's good for pocketbook issues. I'm going to go forward campaigning and also serving my role as Ways and Means chair, looking and studying these issues that most Texans care about. And I think when they see the hard work and they talk about what we did last session and what we're going to do next session, I'd be honored to have any of their votes.
District 83 Representative Dustin Burrows, we thank you for coming on and being candid with us.
Appreciate you very much. Thank you.